Hey everybody, I'm Shauna and welcome back to my channel, Shauna Missy Me HD, a self-improvement channel that strives to inform, encourage, and motivate viewers to start their journey in creating and living their best life. And today, we're going to talk about the different struggles and challenges I had to overcome while becoming a doctor.
Don't get me started.
But before we get started, you guys know what to do. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and don't forget to press the notification bell so that you're the first to know when I release a new video. And when you get a chance, check out my 2 previous videos on how to become a doctor, the overall entire process, as well as the most frequently asked questions that I received on TikTok. So one of the most frequently asked questions was actually, how hard was it to become a doctor? And I felt like that question, or the answer to that question, was way too long to put on my FAQ video. So I decided to create a separate video that talks about what I thought was the hardest part about becoming a doctor, as well as some of the things that I actually faced during the process, which include tests and exams that I actually failed. So stick around to the end of the video where I talk about the things that I actually failed and what I had to do in order to continue my journey and ultimately become a doctor. In my opinion, the top 3 hardest parts about becoming a doctor are the mental requirements, how long you actually have to train, guys, and then having a strong support system to support you through the entire process. When it comes to the mental requirements, if you haven't figured out by now, you have to do a lot of studying and you take a lot of exams, and there's learning upon learning and learning. Like, you never stop learning when you're a doctor. So being able to actually have the mental capacity or even the discipline and commitment to say, I need to study and I'm not gonna stop studying until I understand this concept. Like, that is hard for a lot of people to do. Most people don't really have good study habits. They don't know how to study, right? And then if you know how to study, is it really effective? Are you doing it long enough? Are you studying the right things? Those 2 things are issues within itself. Having the mental capacity to be able to handle the load or the amount of information you have to learn and remember. You know, medical school is not one of those things where you just go memorize everything and then you dump it all after the exam. You know, eventually you will have to know these things, not just memorize it. So I think that's probably the hardest part about becoming a doctor, is the mental requirement to be able to actually practice medicine. The second most important thing that I believe makes it hard to become a doctor is how long you actually have to train. So a lot of people, look at 10 years, 12 years, 15 years as a very long time, and it automatically drives people away, right? Who wants to be in college or training or in school for an additional 12 years after high school? Not a lot of people. And so I think that just having that thought that you have to be in school forever and studying forever and taking tests forever makes it hard for people to actually look past that so that they can put the interest and time necessary to become a doctor. And then the third thing I think is support. If you don't have a strong support system, then it's going to be extremely hard for you. And you need support in various areas, right? Not only do you need family support to say, hey, you're awesome, you're smart, you can do it, don't give up. Like, you need that. You also need someone to say, hey, this is what you need to do. You need this type of GPA. You need this type of research. Your resume needs to look like this. You need to take these courses. You need instructional support, right? And then you also need financial support, because this stuff is not cheap. Undergraduate and college degrees are not cheap. Medical school is not cheap. I went to medical school in Texas, one of the cheapest states to get your medical degree, and I still owe $180,000 back, in loans. So it is not cheap, and you're not able to work a job while you're in medical school. I don't know too many people who have done that, unless you are one of these new age YouTubers who you're in medical school and you're YouTubing and your channel is doing awesome, you're able to make money that way, or you do something online. Yeah, but for the most part, you can't physically actually have a job and support yourself through medical school. Maybe through college, but it's completely different. So the top 3 hardest parts about getting into medical school, in my opinion, are competition, maintaining the GPA and getting the MCAT requirement, as well as just dealing with the psychological thoughts of not feeling like you're good enough or not feeling like you can actually become a doctor. Because a lot of people end up counting themselves out before they even try. So as far as competition, if you look at the numbers when it comes to how many applicants actually apply to medical school versus how many actually get accepted, it's clear that there are not enough seats for everybody who applies to get in, right? And so that's what builds the competition. And unfortunately, every year there are more applicants who apply versus seats that actually open up. So every year is getting more and more competitive, and that's what makes getting into medical school so hard. Obviously, maintaining a good GPA, overall GPA, and a science GPA is difficult for some people. Maybe you're not as strong in science as you would hope to be, and so maintaining a 3.5 or a 3.6 is difficult for you. Maybe you didn't prepare well for the MCAT, and so you just completely bombed it, and now you're having a hard time figuring out what you need to do to study to do well the next time, And then just having the mindset of thinking that you're not smart enough. One thing I cannot emphasize enough is that you do not have to be smart or super intelligent or at the top of your class in order to become a doctor. Some of the best doctors I know got there just through hard work. So that is why I want to encourage you guys. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to make the best grades. You don't have to be valedictorian to become a doctor. You have to want it bad enough and work hard enough until you get it. And finally, the top 3 hardest things that I had to actually deal with during my medical journey are MCAT, step 1, and then my surgery clinical rotation. So for MCAT, when I took the exam about 7-8 years ago or something like that, the exam was scored in 2-digit numbers, not 3-digit like they are now. So when I first took my MCAT, I made a 15. Which I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but it's my truth. It is what it is, right? And so that technically correlates to a 484 in today's MCAT score. So I was crushed. I was devastated, but I had to get real with myself and say, okay, did you really prepare like you should have? Did you take advantage of all of this Kaplan material that you've been provided? Did you listen to anything that the instructor was telling you? Did you did you this, did you that, did you? I really had to get real with myself and say, you know what? I went into that test having an idea about all of the material. I didn't know any of it. And so when I went back and studied for the second time, I made sure I studied to the point to where I could turn around and teach that material to somebody else. Now, was I able to do it for everything? Of course not, because then I make a 45, right? Which is the highest score you could get at that time. So if I knew it all, I'd make the best score. But attacking it with the mindset of knowing as much as I can and knowing it to the point to where I can actually write it out, explain it, teach it to someone really helped me. It helped me better study, and it actually worked. So when I repeated my MCAT, I actually ended up with a 27, which correlates to a 503, 504 in today's MCAT score, which is around the average. I think they say the target score to actually aim for to be like an average applicant is like a 505, 506, something like that. So and it's getting harder by the year. So the MCAT was actually structured differently than it is now. So, but anyway, that is something that I had to deal with, and I almost gave up. When I first got my MCAT score, I was just like, this ain't for me, right? Number 2 was my step 1 score, which is the first board exam you take in becoming a doctor. You take step 1 at the end of your science-based years. So for most medical schools, your science-based years are 2 years, but then more newer curriculums that have come about have science-based years for about 1.5 years. You qualify to take your step 1 exam after that. My step 1 exam was not the best. Okay, I was in the 2 teens, literally. I think I definitely studied wrong. While all of my other colleagues were UWorld for 3 months straight, I decided to just keep studying for my classes, study for my shelf exam, and then I only left 4 weeks for me to study for STEP using the UWorld question bank. But it is what it is, that's what I got. And so what I was determined to do was to make a much better score on my Step 2 exam. And I did way better on my Step 2, and yeah, it worked out. And then the third hardest part that I really haven't shared like with many people at all is that while I was completing my surgery rotation during my third year of medical school, I actually failed the shelf exam. So if you fail the shelf exam, you fail the entire 8-week course. And they have like at my school, they had a remediation course where you would do the rotation for another 4 weeks, and then you take the shelf exam again. So I did that, and I failed it again. And then, I was just like, oh my God, because by that time, it had pretty much thrown my cycle for applying to residency off, which is why I applied to residency late. But that's another video. It threw me off, right? And so I was so devastated. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do next year? How am I gonna do this? I wanna apply for something, competitive, and now they're not gonna take me because I failed twice and it looks like I don't care. And to be honest, I didn't care. I didn't like surgery. And so I didn't put in the effort that I needed to in order to pass the exam. If they let me go early, I was out of there. I wasn't sticking around. I wasn't asking any questions. I had no interest at all in my surgery rotation. And so the third time, I had to actually repeat the entire course. So instead of just repeating 4 weeks and taking the exam, I had to repeat 8 weeks and take the exam. And I did it completely different. I showed up every day like I wanted to be a surgeon. I stayed late, I asked questions, I did learning objectives, I studied every single day. I started early. I went through an entire surgery textbook, every chapter, every concept, and I actually did extremely well. Yeah, it worked out, and luckily, despite my first MCAT attempt, despite my poor Step 1 exam, despite failing my surgery shelf twice, I still made it through medical school and successfully matched into the anesthesia program. So with that being said, you will face difficulties. There will be challenges. You will not have the money or the mental capacity or the support or the Kaplan prep material for the MCAT. You will not have everything that everybody has. So expect them to be difficulties and challenges, but just know that despite those things, you can still become a doctor. If you want it bad enough and you work hard and you correct your wrongs, you can do it. I hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any questions, please DM me on Instagram or leave it in the comments below. Let me know what's been the hardest part for you guys so far on your journey. And then if you want me to address those things and if I can relate, if I have any advice, I will definitely make a video in response to those comments. Thanks, guys.